In this video, we are going to go over the solving with rational exponents notes. So first we're going to go over some steps. So step one is to isolate the term with the exponent. So that could look like this or like this. So we want to get that term alone. Then we're going to raise each side to the reciprocal power. Okay, and so that's just the flip of the fraction. So if I had 2/3, the reciprocal would be 3/2. And then we're going to solve. And then just like we've been doing, we're always going to check our answers. So the reciprocal, I believe in Spanish, is reciproco or reciproca. And so again, that's the flip of that fraction. All right, so let's start off looking at number 1. So we have x to the power of dos. And so if we have a dos power, the opposite of that is going to be the square root of both sides. And so if I have something to the x power, the opposite of that is the square root or the raíz cuadrada. And so when we take the raíz cuadrada of 16, it's always going to be plus or minus. So remember, when we do even roots, so square root, fourth root, our answer is always going to be plus or minus. And that's from our previous unit. And so if I do the square root of 16, it's going to be 4. So the raíz cuadrada of 16 is 4. So it's going to be positivo and negativo 4. So positive and negative 4. Now we would apply the same idea here. So since this is a third power, I'm going to use a third root to both sides. So since this is raised to the power of tres, we're going to use the raíz cúbica to solve. And so when I use the raíz cúbica, or the cube root of 27, I'm going to get 3. And this one is not plus or minus because this is an odd root. So an odd root is always just going to be the answer, versus an even root will be plus or minus. So 2, 4, 6. Odd being 3, 5. Okay, so even versus odd. So there's actually another way we could go about solving these, and this involves this reciprocal or the reciproca or reciprocal, the flip of that fraction. So if I have x to the second, I can rewrite that as 2/1 or 2/1. And then I can use something called the reciprocal or reciproca. And so if I have 2/1 or 2/1, my reciprocal would mean I flip these. And so my reciprocal or the flip would be 1/2. So I'm going to raise both sides to the 1/2 power. Since these are opposite of each other, I'm just going to get x. And then I can do 16 to the 1/2 power in my calculator. So 16. And then if you use this button right here where it says AB, that's how we're going to get that exponent. I'm going to do 1 divided by 2 power, and I'm going to get 4. So notice that's actually the same answer we got up here, because a half power and a square root are the same thing. So 1 over 2 as an exponent is the same as the raíz cuadrada because they're both 4. And since this was that even number, it's going to be plus or minus 4. Now we could do the same thing here. If I have x to the trace, I could put trace over uno. And if I have 3 over 1, the reciprocal is going to be uno over 3. Uno over trace. So uno over trace, uno over trace. 3 over 1 and 1 over 3, these are going to cancel. So we're going to be left with just x. And then I'm going to do this in the calculator. So 27 to the 1/3 is trace, which again, this is the same as the raíz cúbica. The cube root and the 1/3 power are the same. So that's why we get the same answer here. So remember, a fractional exponent is the same as a raíz, or the radical, the cube root. So we're going to have trace. But this is odd, so it's not plus or minus. It's just 3. Okay. Now let's try this more so. So I have this power of 3 over 2. So if I have 3 over 2, my reciprocal is 2 over 3. So I'm going to raise it to 2 over 3 on both sides. So now these powers are going to cancel and be left with just the x, the x. And then this I'm going to put in the calculator. So I'm going to do 27 to the 2 divided by trace power. So make sure you make that an exponent, the power, and we're going to get 9. And again, this bottom number is odd, so it's not plus or minus, so it's just 9. All right, let's do over here. So again, my power here is 4/3, or 4 over trace. So if I have 4 over trace, my reciprocal is trace over 4. So if I have 4 over trace and trace over 4, those are going to cancel. So I'm left with just x. And again, this bottom number is even. And so that means my answer is going to be positivo and negativo. And I'm going to put this in the calculator. So 256, 2, 5, 6 to the trace over 4 power. To the 3 over 4 power. We're going to get 64. So positivo and negativo 64, because the bottom number is even. So even means plus or equals plus or minus. Okay, let's try a few more of these. So now this whole side is being raised this power. So we're going to raise this whole side. So if I have 3 over 2, the reciprocal is 2 over 3. Make sure you use parentheses on this side. So make sure you use parentheses on this side. So parenthesis, I'm sorry guys, parentheses, that's really important. So these are going to cancel. We'll be left with X menos dos. And then I'm going to type this right side in the calculator. So negative 8, negative 8 to the, what's it again? 2 over 3, so dos over tres. Is going to be cuatro, or 4. Okay, so this side's going to be 4. But then I still need to get this x alone. So since it's x menos dos, I'm going to más dos, or add 2 to both sides. And when I do cuatro más dos, I'm going to get 6. Now again, this bottom number was odd. That's why this was not plus or minus. If it was even, if this 3 here was even, then it would have been plus positivo and negativo cuatro. But no, since it's just odd, it's just positivo cuatro. All right, now this one looks a little different. I want to get this x, the x to the 5 over 2 alone. So again, I always want to add or subtract first, then multiply or divide. So since this is positivo 10, I'm going to menos 10 to both sides. And then since this 4 is multiplicar to the x, or cuatro multiplicar x, we're going to divide by cuatro. And we're going to get 32. Okay, now if I have 5 halves, the reciprocal is going to be 2/5. But notice the x, or the x, is totally alone. Totally alone. So now we're going to raise both sides to that reciprocal power. And that'll get me just the x. And I'm going to do 32 to the 2/5. And I'm going to get 4. But again, this is odd. So it's just one answer. So it is just going to be 4, not plus or minus. Only if it's the bottom number is even is it plus or minus. So it's just 4. All right, let's try 2 more. So again, I want to get this part alone, which it is. So if I have 4 over 5, or cuatro over cinco, the reciprocal is cinco over cuatro. So we're going to do cinco over cuatro, cinco over cuatro. Now, this bottom number is even. So that means my answer is going to be plus or minus. But on the left side, I'm going to be left with just 4x plus 8. And then I need to put this in the calculator, 16 to the 5/4. And we're going to get 32. So positivo and negativo, 32. So this means I'm going to have 2 answers. So I need to set 4x plus 8 equal to positive 32. And 4x plus 8 equal to negative 32. Because remember, this is really 32 and negative 32. It's 2 answers. And then we need to solve each of these for x. So we're going to put plus 8 más 8. So we're going to menos 8. 8. 24, so 24 divided by 4, And we'll get 6 menos 8, negative 40, divide by 4, negativo 10. And then remember, especially when we get two answers, we need to make sure that we are checking that they both work. So if I have 4 multiplica 6 más 8, so 4 times 6 plus 8 to the 4/5 power, and I'm hoping it should equal 16. So I'm going to plug this whole side into the calculator. 4, 6, 8, 4/5. Okay. So parentheses 4, parentheses 6, plus 8, parentheses to the 4 divided by 5 power, and it equals 16. Yay! Okay, so this is good. Now let's do the same thing for this one. So 4 times negative 10, 4 multiplica negativo 10, más 8 plus 8 to the 4 over 5, or the 4 over 5. And again, we're hoping it equals 16. So I'm just going to go change this 6 to a negativo to a negative 10. Sorry guys, my keyboard's having a little trouble here. Good. Also equals 16. So that's good. So that means these are both answers. All right, the last one we're going to do is very much the same as the first one. So I want you to pause the video now. And I want you to try on your own. So I want you to stop the video and then play it when you're done. Okay, so now I think you've tried this one on your own. So it's being raised to the 2/3 power on this side. So I'm going to raise this to the 3/2 power. And now be careful, this is even. So that means my answer is plus or minus. So whatever I get over here, I'm going to get positive and negative. And so on this side, I'm going to have negative 10x minus 5. And so in my calculator, I'm going to do 125 to the 3/2 power. Oops, it was not 3/2. Was it? No, 25 to the, sorry guys. 25 to the 3/2 power is 125. So we're going to have positivo and negativo 125. So again, this is two answers. So we're going to set up two equations with positivo 125, positive 125, and negativo negative 125. So we're going to add 5. Divide by negative 10. With negative 13. Then we'll do the same thing on this side. And this time we have a negativo and a negativo, so we're going to get positivo 12, positive 12. And then we have to check. Okay, so we're going to have negative 10, negative 10, multiplied by negative 13, multiplica negativo 3, minus 5 menos 4 to the 2/3 power. And I'm hoping it equals 25. Then I'm also going to plug in 12. So negativo 10, negative 10 multiplied by 12, multiplica 12 menos 5 menos 5, sorry guys, to the 2/3 power, and I'm hoping that equals 25. So we'll type both those into Desmos. Oh, I need parentheses to start off with. -10 multiplying -13 minus 5 to the 2/3 power. 25, which is what I wanted. So good. I put this side in the calculator and I want it to equal this side. So this one's good. And then I'm going to check this one. So I'm just going to change that -13 to a 12. Also equal to 25, so that's good. So both answers work.